All right, book review. I don't have the book with me, but I read or listened to, if you don't count audiobooks as reading, but whatever. I bike a lot. I count it. If I can read with my eyes, I can read with my ears. So I read the book, The Towers of Sunset, which is I don't know, maybe you want to count it as second, maybe you want to count it as like eighth in the Recluse series by Modesitt Jr. It's a really interesting series because it's 19 books long, and you can't really tell what order you're supposed to read it in because it happens over 2,000 years. Most of the books are completely standalone, and I think at the very least, they're at least 5 years apart. There's just 5 years you don't even see. For the few that have like sequels, and the rest of them are just like, all right, this happens, we're explaining this area of time, we have really great characters, you're never going to see them again. Which is why it really pushed me away for a long time. I read the first one, which is The Magic of Recluse. I looked into it, saw that there was a sequel like 5 years later, and that turned me off just a little. I'm fine with time skips, but not, I don't know. And then I found out like, oh wait, but this happens like basically at the end of this series. So I was like, oh no, did I just read like way into the series? But it didn't seem like it by the book. It turns out you're supposed to read it in publication order too, which adds another layer of complication and kept me away from it for even longer, because the publication order just skips around in the chronological order. Like I said, it's 2,000 years-ish. It's 1800 actually, or 1855. But the result of this is that the books don't only not go in chronological order, they completely just skip around. Like the first one, if you want to go by the author's like publication order that he recommends, or maybe, no, it's a he, Modesitt Jr. I believe I've seen a picture of him. But if you want to go by his recommended publication order, then you start out with like 5 years before the end of the series. Then you skip to like the dead middle, I think the year 900. And then you skip to like 300 years after that. It's interesting though, because initially it sets up like this is kind of how the world turns out. And more or less things, the last book, they all sort of I'm 2 books in, so I can't really speak for the whole series. But thus far, they seem to really kind of have chosen one-y characters, but in different ways. So in this book, the main character for almost the entire thing was basically unparalleled in power. He could do anything. He's super strong with like as a warrior. And then the character in this book could really just kind of do anything. He wasn't paralleled. But the problem was his enemies weren't just like specific. It wasn't like Superman versus Lex Luthor or whatever. Or it wasn't like, I don't know, who's Batman, the Joker, Batman versus the Joker either. It was more like Superman versus the United Nations. Except if the United Nations were not really united and being manipulated by a very evil country. We'll say North Korea, except North Korea, but with like the power of, I don't know, England. So it's, I don't know. It's an interesting story. So it's more colossal. Like, yeah, sure, you got a ton of power, but power isn't what's necessary here. It's money and people, and food, mostly money, so you can get food. So yeah, it's an interesting book. It tells a whole story. That's the thing I like about these sort of high fantasy stand-alone books. They don't occur very much, but Modesitt Jr. does them well, where they tell a whole story. Like the main bit that you're probably going to read this book for, other than just like as part of the series, is the creation, what he and the other character, Majera, that might be someone else. Am I forgetting names already? Whatever. He and the other character create. You probably read for that. But that happens like 40% into the book. And that might not seem like much, but a lot happens before that. There's a lot of character development. There's a lot of stuff going on. Even at the end, I think there's like, I don't know, there is a decent amount of reading at the end which is just not even like an afterword. It's just like, hey, like things, this is how things are now. Maybe it's better, maybe it's worse, but like this is how things are now. I don't know, but I don't know. I liked it. The first book in the series was The Magic of Recluse. I liked it too, although it was a lot more direct and less like big powers fighting, because at that point it was kind of, I don't know if it's necessarily decided who won as much as it's decided how things would be. As far as I can tell by the little description of the way first, like the 1800 years before the first, or 1850 years before The Magic of Recluse book, it's, things are crazy and not at all decided at that point. And then a lot of stuff happens throughout. But then, so I mean, that's fun on its own. But then at the end, things are sort of flipped, I guess. Like, things are kind of working out. There's still problems, and this enemy, but the character, although he seems a lot more like a main sort of protagonist, to me at least, than this character did in this second book, he was way less powerful. This character, for reference, at some points, it's hard to tell what he does, but more or less, I think he at least can create like just a tornado. Just like, oh, there's some people wanting to fight me. Tornado time. So the thing is, the character, in the first book, he seems a lot less powerful in hindsight. At the time, he seemed plenty powerful. But the character in the second book was a lot more directly, like he had crazy powers. But the other one seemed to be more like a traditional, it's high fantasy, so I guess I can explain it. There's more or less, you should read the book to understand it. There's more or less two magic types. There's chaos or white magic, or order or black magic. And it becomes pretty clear black magic is the good guys. Chaos magic, although not inherently evil, the people who aren't like just evil in the books and are yet still white mages are either like in fact gray, which means they're both and they usually will pick one side or the other, or it means they're just white only because of like circumstance. In reality, once they like realize they're actually black, they'll just become a black mage. So if you see like a really evil character, he's chaos oriented, basically. And that's just how it works. Although I guess the black mages aren't inherently good necessarily. They're just like, they just create things and they can't even destroy. I think they can still chop down it's stuff like they can't kill is like a good example. Really, once they really master their skill, they just can't stomach it, even with magic or not. Although I don't think they're physically able with magic. But, so anyways, the character in the second book actually has a way around this, but you'll see that in the book if you read it, though I do recommend reading them in order. So anyways, the first book was a little, the stuff was a lot less cosmic. It was one character versus another character. But I think he was, Ellie Modesitt Jr. at that book was really, I couldn't tell because I thought at that point it was just one book, maybe there'd be a sequel, but he was really setting up the world. And it's an interesting perspective to start out with almost the end of a series, but he does it well. He explains how everything results. So at that point, he's got 18 other books to explain, like, here's how that got this way. And one of them, this book, was explaining a major area and what the books are named for, Recluse, where the main character of the first book was born and where the main character of the second book assumably dies. We don't see it, but it's assumable that that's where. He certainly, in the last like 2/3 of the book or 60% of the book or whatever, has no intention of ever leaving it. Recluse, that is, the island of Recluse. Even though I can't tell how big these continents are, honestly, but I think it might be, assuming they're kind of massive, like assuming one of the main continents would be the size of I guess, like continental United States. Then one of the bigger ones is like Russia sized, or at least Canada sized. And then one of the other one, and then there's two others which are maybe like France or Spain sized. And then there's Recluse, which is maybe like the United Kingdom or Japan or Madagascar or something like that. So for reference, even if they're way smaller than this, it's large scale to them. And anyways, it seems to me at first it seemed like none of them become important, but I guess they're all right. So my phone's almost dead. It just deleted 10 minutes of stuff I was talking about with the book, though I think I was giving away too much information. You're about to see a little outro I made when I thought my phone was about to die and I was going to have to go bike home with nothing. And I'm not close to home, so it'd be a while. But I found an old charger and an old cord so I can charge up my phone. Sad I still have 3% and this video is still going to be pretty long. So, yeah. Like I'm about to say, like you're about to hear me, just read them. They're good. Or read anything high fantasy, honestly. I don't think there's a bad high fantasy. Go read the Belgorod if you don't want something that's going to skip around chronologically or be 19 books long. Or read a standalone, or read The Hobbit. I don't know. Do your own thing. Anyways, have a good day. Alright, so I just recorded 10 minutes of footage that didn't record because it's giving me a battery warning. Also, it's on 2%, so I'm going to be really fast about this. Either way, first book's really good. Second book, really good. Better, more cosmic scale. I don't know. I liked it. Gonna read the third book, but I'm probably going to wait a little bit. I need a buffer. So anyways, that's a good video. I might add more to this. This might just be the end of the video you see, and you might see more. But for now, I'm going to end this because I have 2% of my phone, and as far as I know, not another way to charge it. So that's interesting. I had like 50% a minute ago, so bye. Hopefully you like the turkeys outro I added. I like it.